Persuasion secret number 2, storytelling.
Storytelling.
Show, don't tell. Stories bypass the logical brain. So for me personally, I don't know, have you guys ever been to a seminar where it's like 2 or 3 days long? Right? I have, in fact, like I actually really enjoy those. If you're listening to a boring speaker, what you'll notice is that you can't even stay in the room for an hour. But if you go to a seminar where it's 2 or 3 days, the best seminars that you can go to, they're always telling stories, story after story after story after story after story, and you don't even notice the time go by. And while they're doing that, they're actually persuading you because stories, going back to Ed's example of going like back, a lot of these persuasion stuff actually are hardwired within our brain or within our DNA, right? Storytelling was a way to share with the tribe whether or not there were dangers outside, certain lessons that they've learned on their journeys, right? This way that people in your tribe don't actually have to go through the same mistakes that you've gone through yourself. So stories are very, very,
and
very
a lot
powerful.
of people, when they try to do persuasion, they are too lazy. Okay, they think, example, they cold email somebody, hey, do you want to buy my services? They think that's persuasion. No, that's not persuasion. That's being a fucking idiot. Okay, it does not work. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. But they think, oh, I'm persuading other people. No, that's pushing. That's like pushing your agenda, pushing your product on other people. A good persuader is always much more inviting. So think about push, right? Traditional sales, right? High ticket closing, persuasion. It's pulling people, inviting people, attracting people. It's a very different idea. So always, anytime you have to do persuasion, ask yourself a simple question. Am I pushing or am I pulling? Chances are more than 90% of the time, people are pushing. Sell, right? Like what I need to sell, what I need to get them to buy versus how do I make people want what I want, right? How do people want my product and services?
So when someone goes, tell me about yourself, like we said earlier, show, don't tell. So are you going to say, oh, I'm charming, I'm attractive, I'm fun,
you should date
I'm
me.
interesting, you
That's
should date me.
Pushing, right?
Yeah. But if it's like, well, what are you looking for? I'm looking for this. Oh, well, and then you go into a story. Maybe so like this person is looking for someone, not like in a weird way, but like looking for someone fun and spontaneous, like who has a sense of adventure. Yeah, exactly. And then you could tell a story about something funny you did like a while back. Or something goofy you did, and then you can portray that value. We'll get more into that in a little bit, but you'll portray some of that value, or you'll make that point of in the story, and they will, not subconsciously, but they will extract that idea from the story. So you take the idea of what you want. So like, what do you want to say to this person? So if she's looking for, or he's looking for someone fun, and then you don't say, hey, I'm fun. Like, that's so weird. But if you can frame it in a story and tell a story of a time that
without you saying
had fun.
it.
Exactly.
In other words, how can you show, how can you demonstrate through storytelling without you just bluntly saying it? And that takes more work. That's why most people, they're not very good communicators, persuaders, because they're too lazy. They don't think about how do I communicate that without saying it. It's easy to say it, just like this, right? But how can you say the same thing without saying it?
That's right.
And that's a very different idea. Interview.
Okay. So if you go into an interview for a job and then the person hiring goes, why do you want this job? Well, it's a funny story. And then you can go into your entire story of maybe you're living, like, for example, seafood story, trying to support his mom, college dropout, just trying to get by, trying to make an impact, trying to help other people, trying to make his family proud. Would you rather hire someone who has this story of their background, or just say, oh, I'm here for the money?
Yeah. Or what's my pay? What's the hourly rate? What's my vacation pay? Right? Like what are my benefits? A lot of people, they don't understand that they instead of sharing that through a story format. Networking.
It's easy to be direct. Just adding on, it's easy to be direct. Say, I want this, but like you said, if you can frame it in a story or have a way of not saying it, it's infinitely more powerful, because the human mind, like, you can push as much as you want, but nothing will ever be as powerful as someone coming to their own conclusions about you and about what you're offering or what you are about.
Yes.
So you go networking, let's say you go to a seminar, and people go, hey, so what do you do for work?
Oh, that's such a common question.
Oh, I'm an engineer. Oh, I'm a life coach. That's a good one, right? I'm a life coach. Instead of that, try being different. Say, hey, that's a good question. So, when I was younger, I always had this amazing passion of talking to people. I always loved interacting, and I always loved just putting a smile on people's faces. Now, imagine if I do that and then I go into how, I'm a comedian.
Yes.
Or I'm a script writer or something versus I'm a script writer. That's so lame.
Yeah.
It's volumes how different you can persuade people and influence and be more impactful just by not being so direct right off the bat.
And it doesn't mean you need to use stories on everything.
Yeah.
Because that's overkill, that's way too much. But when you are communicating, let's say in closing, sometimes a one-on-one, it's a good idea to have a couple stories of maybe sometimes it could be your story, it could be your client success story that you're able to tell. So instead of you saying, hey, this is how awesome I am. Well, let me tell you about my client, John, right? When John first came to us, he was having these issues, these problems, and we did these things, and then we helped him to get to this point. Right, you have the story, like
so powerful,
right? Versus we're the best.
Yeah.
Do you see the difference? Do you hear the difference? Right? But you need to learn how to be able to share and tell that story, and it takes a little bit of practice too, right? You need to practice at a time and how you say it.
So, how do you tell a good story? Well, that's a good question. In every story, there are three very, very, very important parts. The first is the value, the point, or the moral. We'll get into a good example.
Kind of what's the point of all this story?
Yeah, why should I care? Why does this matter? Like, what are you trying to tell me? That's really the important.
I do have a friend of mine who always tells good stories, but after he tells a story, he's always, and then he stops. I'm like, and then, well, that's it. I said, what do you mean that's it? Like, what? I'm waiting for the punchline. What's the punchline? That's it. That's what happened. Like he's a very good, like story opener, right? It tells awesome, like, let me tell about this. I'm like, yeah, tell me about it. And then he always does this. Right? He doesn't have a punchline. How many have a friend like that? You have a friend like that?
And then the next part is time and place. Now this is really crucial because in the human mind, the whole point of a story is to be able to imagine it in your head. And it's very hard to imagine something if there's no time or place, or you don't express it or hint at it with whatever it is that you are talking about. So now imagine if I'm telling you a story about, this couple who, can't get together because of their family values. Now, if this story took place in, the 1500s or medieval ages, that entire theme and how the person imagines that story in the medieval ages, it's like a knight and a princess.
Yes.
Totally different. That's why it's so important to have a time and a place. And usually when you are telling a story, you want to start off with a time and place. Think of Star Wars.
So when was it?
Long time ago.
What was the environment like? Where are you? Where were you? Right? Why are you there? Right? You got to give people a little bit of that background first before you talk about what actually happened. You need to share that point of view, right? The time and place.
You have to set the scene.
Yeah, set the scene.
So and then moving on to the third point, any good story is a protagonist who's trying to do something or have something happen, and there is something blocking them. So there's a problem.
Usually a problem.
Yeah. So
or incident.
Exactly. Incident.
A problem, an incident.
Yeah. Something that's stopping them from getting to whatever that goal is.
Yeah.
So here's a great example of that. The tortoise and the hare. I'm sure everybody's heard of this story before. So let's think of the time and place. We're not really sure of the time, but we know the place
is race.
They're in a race. That's very clear. You can imagine, you can imagine the crowds cheering. You can imagine the runway. You can imagine like the dotted line to separate them as they run. Yeah, you can imagine the rabbit. You can imagine the tortoise. But the problem is the tortoise wants to beat the hare or the rabbit. The tortoise is slow, but the hare is fast. So the problem is the tortoise wants to win, but he's slow. So put in the chat, what is the moral of the story of the tortoise and the hare without me even telling the story?
That's right.
What is the moral? Comment it.
Don't be the rabbit. Yeah, don't get cocky.
That's right.
Even you're winning, don't get cocky.
So the moral of the story is slow and steady wins the race. Now imagine if, first of all, just imagine think about how powerful that is, that you probably heard this story maybe once or twice in your childhood, and we all know it.
We remember.
It's such a universal story, and it's a universal truth, and that's the power of storytelling, because we remember.
You may not remember exactly, like the story itself doesn't have necessarily a conclusion. It doesn't say slow and steady wins the race. It doesn't have that, but it's more powerful because you come to your own conclusion. Yes, and notice the same story. You see, consistency beats flukes. You don't want to be arrogant. You want to be patient. See, we all get different things out of it. Right? It's the same story, but we get different things out of it because we look at things from our own filter. Right? It's what it means to us.